All right, welcome everybody. We are officially recording as you heard. Thank you all for joining us for Dissecting a Dissertation or Thesis workshop. Today's workshop presenter is Alanna Bitzel, Assistant Director of the Writing Center, and I am going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Alanna. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Alyssa. Hi, all. My name's Alanna. I'm just going to correct my last name, Bitzel. Alanna Bitzel. I'm Assistant Director of the Writing Center. I'm excited to be here this afternoon. I'm actually new to UNLV, so like you all, I'm starting on new adventures this academic year. So thank you all for joining. I'm excited to talk with y'all about dissecting a dissertation or thesis. This particular workshop is going to focus primarily on those two types of documents. So if you're working on something else, just want you to be aware of that. You're still welcome to be here and to participate. But the questions that we're going to be posing and the particular reflection that we're doing during this time will focus on dissertation and theses. So just wanted to clarify that for you all. Erin Zimmerman is also here. She is director of the Writing Center. She will also be available to help answer questions and chime in with the group. But as Alyssa was saying, please, if you have questions as we're going along, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. And I'm also comfortable if you want to just unmute yourself and ask the question. I'm fine with that. My style in general tends to be pretty informal, so feel free to unmute at any point. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to show the handout that we presented to you all via the that should have been available to you already on the Canvas site, I believe. But we're going to be using that handout during this time to guide our discussion. So I just want to make sure that that is available. The handout that we're going to be using, and really want to encourage you to tailor it to your particular project. But our goal today is to help you start that process of thinking about what the conventions and expectations are for your thesis, for your dissertation project in the particular field in which you're working. And everyone here, I believe, is not new to the writing process, but we might be new to this particular type of project, something like a dissertation, something like a master's thesis, a master's report. And when we're working on a project that is unfamiliar to us, something that we haven't tackled before, something that we haven't written before, it's really helpful to look at samples, to look at models, to see how these types of projects have been approached by others in the field, whether that's an instructor, an advisor, a colleague who has written in the field, to give us a sense of what the overall organization is, what the overall tone is, what the overall approach is. Um, you know, anytime we start something new, it's helpful to have those kind of tips and guidelines, whether it's, starting making a new dish and using a recipe, or learning a new skill. I recently went to a rock climbing gym and took an intro to bouldering class, and it was helpful to see the instructor go through the course for the first time before I jumped in and did the course myself. So in the same way, having templates, having models that we can look at can help guide us as we're starting these new projects. And I hope everyone here had a chance to go ahead and do a bit of research in response to the prompt that we provided to find a sample dissertation, to find a sample thesis in the field in which you're working. So using that sample that you have found already, we want to go ahead and jump into the annotation process. So by annotating, we mean that you are interacting with the text via a close reading. You are looking at it with an eye for important information and features in the text that are going to help promote your understanding of that material and to help promote reflection on your own project. Okay, so I'm going to go through and read the questions here, particularly thinking about genre, structure, and style. And then we're going to leave some time for you all to look at the sample that you located and think through these questions. So in terms of genre, one immediate question that comes to mind is, what do you notice about the genre? What are the features that are being included? What is not being included? What seems to be the purpose of the document that you found? What is the goal? What is the intention with the particular document? Who is the audience for that document? And how can you tell from looking at the dissertation? What in the document itself reveals the audience to you? And that will be tied to the purpose, right? How does the dissertation or the thesis that you found in your research compare to other genres that you may already be familiar with? These other types of documents might be a research article, for example, a grant proposal, a lab report. So how does this dissertation or thesis compare to those other types of writing? How is it dissimilar? And what features or characteristics about the document stand out to you? What do you notice immediately? Then we also have some questions related to the structure of the dissertation or thesis sample that you found. How is it organized? How is it put together from beginning to end? What sections are included? And we want to, as we're thinking about the sections, again, go back to what is the purpose or the goal of this dissertation, and how do each of those sections further that overall goal or intention of the dissertation? Within the sections themselves, what content is included? And again, with each of these kind of smaller sections, how do those serve in the larger whole of the dissertation? How do they build on each other and contribute to that larger goal or purpose of the dissertation or the thesis that you found? And finally, by way of kind of preliminary question asking, we also want you to think about the style of the writing. What do you notice about the writing in the dissertation or the thesis sample that you found? Again, what stands out to you about tone, about the types of sentences, the sentence structure that the author is using, the types of vocabulary, the jargon might be another way of thinking about it. So what stands out to you in that regard? So we want to take a little bit of time. We're thinking 15 minutes or so, to where we want you to kind of dive into the dissertation, the thesis, the sample that you found, and ask yourself these questions. And in asking yourself these questions and kind of annotating the text, we're hoping that this is going to provide you some good information when we get into the next section and start to think about your own document. So take some time now. Feel free to ask questions as you go in the chat. Will be available, but go ahead and start working through the document, and then we'll circle back in about 15 minutes. I'll give like a 5-minute warning. Just briefly before we move to our next set of questions, how was this activity for you all? How was it looking with an eye to genre, structure, and style? Feel free to unmute or just add some words in the chat. How was this exercise for you? Was it easy to find information and answer these questions? Was it more challenging? Hard to answer all the questions. Thanks, Jenny. Just because of the number, or were there some that were more challenging to kind of parse out with the particular document you have? Okay, so difficult to find a dissertation that accommodates what I was thinking to do. I think that can be a real challenge, and often when we think we're going to go in one direction, we may have to pivot. So hopefully kind of seeing what is in the field might kind of give you additional thoughts on ways to organize, but perhaps also working with your advisor to think about uh, if there are other dissertations that might more closely resemble what you're looking to do. And thank you all for sharing. I spent a little too much time trying to fix the comments listed name. Some difficulty finding good examples. Thank you, Katie. Several great resources to help start the mind mapping process, start thinking about layout. That's good. Um, Dissertation is from a different school. Again, maybe working closely with advisor to find other samples that might more closely align could be useful. And then Nikki, I found a dissertation from my department that had the same advisor that seemed to make it easier, but it did make me panic a little seeing how long it is and thinking I had already completed a chunk of mine. Um, Another good advisor connection to make, and hopefully, while it might bring some initial panic, kind of give you some ideas, trains of thoughts to be able to pursue with your own project. Thank you all for sharing those preliminary thoughts and feelings, and just continue to breathe through it. It is a process, it is a journey. It, this is just the start of a longer process to come. So hang in there. So now that you all have kind of done some initial consideration as far as genre, structure, style in the documents that you did find, I want you to now kind of shift gears a little bit, having gone through that annotation exercise, and really start to reflect on how you might be able to apply what you learned from this brief exercise to your own project. So we've got another set of questions here to promote that reflection and to help guide your thinking about kind of the samples, the models that you have found, and start really cluing in onto your own project. So again, what are key aspects that you're noticing from the field, from the discipline in the sample that you found? And some of you have already started kind of alluding to this, but how has reading this dissertation, how has reading this thesis informed your thinking about your own dissertation? What are questions that you might want to consider? What are questions you might want to go back to your advisor with? What are observations that you made about the model or sample that are kind of, getting you to think about, and again, you've already kind of touched on these things, but questions to consider or concerns that you might have about your own project that you want to connect with your advisor about. Does the model that you found, and some of you got at this as well, seem to be the best model to follow based on your particular project, your particular goals, the data that you're collecting, your personal writing style, what your advisor's preferences might be as far as format, style, etc.? What are you still unsure about? What do you have questions about? And again, what might you want to ask your advisor about? So let's spend another maybe 10 or so minutes working through these questions and following up on any kind of questions that you maybe didn't get to through the first go around before we then share out a little bit more and kind of wrap up with some outlining. So go ahead and take about another 10 minutes or so and continue to put any questions in the chat. Thank you all to everyone who's been kind of engaging in the chat thus far. But now that we've gone through annotation and reflection, are there other thoughts that folks want to share on questions that have been raised for them, considerations that they are excited to go speak with their advisor about? Love to hear any thoughts or questions for me, for Erin, that we might be able to help you with as you're working through this part of your writing process. I'll leave some time right now to look at the chat for any questions that are coming up for you all. Things that this exercise made you think about. Did anyone, and after kind of looking at the dissertation or thesis they found, did anyone realize that maybe they want to approach their own project in a slightly different way? From Jenny, it's actually helpful to skim and read through the chapters in this dissertation because I can see what may or may not be necessary for me and my topics. That's great. Yes, I mean, I think that this kind of research and finding samples is not only about, as you're saying, not only about what you might want to include, but what you might be able to exclude, and how you might be able to refocus your project. And Jenny, so I'd like to ask my advisor what the best approach would be so as to not do more work than is needed, for sure. Your time is valuable, so you really want to focus it where you can. And if there are certain portions, for example, too much background are not needed. I think that those are some really good insights and takeaways, Jenny. Thank you for sharing that. And then Julian, after looking over the dissertation that I found, I'm wondering if my project would be enough. So that is why I want to ask my advisor. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think kind of the recurring theme that we're seeing in this Q&A is that definitely utilize your advisor. They are going to be a wonderful resource for you with these types of questions that you have. Where do you need to spend time and energy? Where might you be able to not spend time and energy? Are there areas that you need to expand in your research? And that might be a matter of kind of expanding your topic or narrowing in, depending on the circumstance. And your advisor is going to be a really good point of reference for you in that regard. Thank you both for sharing those thoughts. Any other reflections that came out of these questions as you were kind of thinking about your own project in relation to the sample that you found? Just gonna give it another moment or so. But yeah, any other insights, questions that came up for you all? Well, if anything comes to mind, don't hesitate to continue to add in the chat, but thank you all for sharing. So for Jenny, not a question, but more so a reminder that the dissertation tone doesn't have to be anything else but my own. This particular dissertation has a personality of the group member who wrote it. Absolutely. And I think that that's a really good point, Jenny. Thank you for raising that. By looking at these samples, kind of the research that is done in the field in the field in which you're working, you can get a better sense of conventions and expectations. But ultimately, you still want your project to have your voice, to have your personality, as you so nicely put it. And so while, looking at kind of other work will give you a sense of kind of um, the field at large, and again, those kind of conventions and expectations, you still do want to kind of bring your own pizzazz to it, and working closely with your advisor can be really helpful in that regard. Thank you for that. And Laurencia, my study is the first of its kind at UNLV. Congrats, that's exciting and scary, I'm sure. um, Sorry, I'm just saying, finding a similar study in the library has been a hustle. My advisor suggested to look at a dissertation from his old student in a different school. However, I'm scared it may be too much. And I think if you are kind of pursuing, first of all, best of luck with this new venture. But again, I think I don't want to kind of be overly repetitive, but I love that this aspect of working closely with your advisor and being able to look at what resources might be beneficial to you in that regard, especially if it is a novel approach, something new to UNLV, but what other resources, whether it is kind of connecting with people at other institutions who have done similar work to really help guide you. So thank you for sharing that experience. And Julia's finding definitely scheduling with your go-to people. Again, connecting with your advisor will be key. Thank you all. In the interest of time, I'm going to just kind of move us toward the conclusion of this session, but continue to put thoughts, questions in the chat. So at this point, we've annotated documents that we have found. We've done some reflection on our own projects, and it sounds like some really great reflecting and kind of thinking through of key considerations at this point. And so having gone through those two processes, and now we can really start to kind of move toward outlining your project, using what you learned through the previous two exercises. So You don't have to have all the answers figured out, of course, today, but our primary goal is just to start thinking about how you might structure your thesis or your dissertation, depending on your particular projects, so that you can begin working on parts this week. And if you've already started on parts of your thesis or dissertation, already have some parts written, feel free to copy or paste those into an outline so that you have a working document that you can continue to edit into a fuller draft moving forward. So let's just take a few moments now, maybe another 5 or so minutes to kind of start putting it together, start putting what we've learned through annotation and reflection into practice in an outline. Again, don't have to have it all figured out today, but just so that you have a working document, that you're able to start a working document now while these kind of considerations are fresh in your mind. So take a few more minutes and then we will circle back and wrap up. All right, y'all. I'm going to um, stop there in the last few minutes that we have and ask if there's anything else that you all would like to share or any other questions. But we hope that um, kind of starting to do that research in the field and annotating and with an eye to thinking about your own project. We hope that this is helpful at this stage right before the academic year begins, and that you have some tangible ideas for how to move forward with your outline. And after today's session, we just want to continue um, to be here as a resource for you all. So please do stay in touch. We are here to help support you and field questions along the way, in addition to the wonderful support that you have via the libraries and through your advisors. Continue to reach out and ask for help. It's a long process, it's a long journey, and you have multiple people here to support you along the way and in as far as writing, research, organization, all good things. So any final thoughts, questions, concerns? Erin, anything else you would like to share before we close out this session for today?
No, I don't think so. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully this was useful.
Well, thank you so much, Alanna, for walking everybody through these exercises. I hope you all got a lot out of it. I'm going to stop recording our session for now.